Welcome back, Camden Catholic. Oh, man. Good stuff today. I liked it a lot. We're progressing forward. We're right on time where we need to be. Just to give you another heads up, though, map quiz Thursday, all right? Next test is going to be next Tuesday, all right? October 30th is going to be your next test day, all right? And we're sticking to that date no matter what. We will figure it out, and we're almost done, actually, with Rome. So, we're pushing forward really, really fast. But anyway, we left off in class talking about how, art and construction are going to leap forward during this golden age of the Pax Romana, right? This golden age, that term that history teachers kind of made up because it wasn't golden for everybody, but we're not going to get into historical bias right now, all right? But continuing forward, though, one big thing that was developed during this time period was this epic poem by a guy named Virgil, all right? So Virgil is kind of like the Roman version of, let's say, Homer or Socrates or any other influential thinker of the time. Now, what he's going to do is he's going to write this thing called the Aeneid, right? And the Aeneid was an origin story, all about the establishment of Rome. The romantic version of it, though, right? That actually, really quick, what were all of Homer's stories focused around? What event in history? Good job, Bella. Yeah, happy now? So, good job, Bella Craig. The Trojan War, right? So, the main thing is that the Aeneid was all about the displaced Trojans following the war, and the story goes that they went and founded Rome. Now, we know in the historical community that that's not actually accurate. We know that didn't actually happen, that they were actually founded by the Latins, the Etruscans, the Greeks, all kind of respectively due to their culture, and that the original Romans were actually an offshoot of the original Latin people. But that's neither here nor there. Virgil's Aeneid was just a very romantic poem about, we're descendant of Trojans, because that was the thing to say at the time. Speaking of art and construction, though, there's one giant thing that I had to talk to you about, and it was built under the Pax Romana. It's called the Colosseum, right? So Colosseum is spelled Coliseum. I think that's it. If that's not right, we'll figure it out later. But again, I'm not the best speller in the world, as we know, but I'm pretty confident that's how you spell it. Let me double check again real fast, though. It's Coliseum. Yeah! Colosseum, right? So the Colosseum is the romantic version of the Roman games, right? So was it used for the original purpose like the Circus Maximus was? To distract the people, to celebrate victories, to be a part of religious and political functions? It was, right? So it was all about entertaining what was known as the mob of Rome, right? For example, whenever an emperor would be victorious, they would have consecutive days of games, right? They would have 100 days of games. One big famous one was a guy named Commodus, which we'll talk about tomorrow when we talk about our bad emperors and stuff like that. But I don't want to put those stories on the internet because some of them are a little... Sorry, I know, Olivia. I know. I didn't get to it yet, but we're getting there, all right? So the Colosseum, though, was a massive sports arena, right? This is what it looks like on the inside, present day, from a panoramic view. Now, some of you are like, where's the floor? Why does it look like that? It's gross. All right, well, really, really fast, let's talk about why it does look this way. What did I do? I'm flipping. What? Hold on one second, guys. Yes.
It's very important. Ew, what are you doing?
You're about to be on the internet. What's up?
Oh, I thought you had a kiss in here.
No. I'm flipping. I'm talking to myself. Bye, Miss Madden. Anyway, sorry about that. So the Colosseum, right? Why does it look this way? Ew, it's gross. Sounds like something Chi-Chi would say, right? So, the thing about the Colosseum and the way that it looks like right now is actually because of stone thieves, right? So after the fall of Rome that we'll talk about later on, it's actually one of the next things we're getting to. The thing about it is the age of Roman antiquity, their artifacts, their aqueducts, their forum, all these things are going to fall into disrepair because this is after the rise of Christianity. And a lot of these things people called stone thieves would actually sneak in at night and take their iron rods and a lot of the pieces of stone off these artifacts and these and turn them into ruins because they were literally ruined, right? And actually sell them to Christians so they would be have churches built out of them, right? They would take it and grind it up into concrete, new concrete anyway. And then this actually is one of the best freestanding pieces of modern concrete construction that was ever seen, right? Now, but that's why it looks the way that it does. It didn't get held up that well because people were more focused on building churches and less on keeping things from Rome viable, right? Well, to keep continuing forward, though, very, very cool. As you can see, the floor is not there right now, right? Mainly because it's made of wood. The floor was made of wood. It was covered with sand, right? And I'll show you a picture of what it would look like in a second. And as you can see, though, look at all these openings right here. The gladiators, the fighters would actually be underneath, right? Underneath. There are 3 types of people that would compete inside of this thing. You have gladiators, which are specially trained people to actually fight in these games. Some of them were freemen, some of them were slaves, right? A small percentage of them were freemen, but some of them were slaves, right? And a lot of money and investments went into these guys, right? And then you had other types of slaves that would actually be there. And then the third person you would have is prisoners. It's people that might be executed in a very fancy way, right? So, well, continuing forward, though, that's Mr. Terry standing in the Coliseum, being weird, not doing what to do with my face. But anyway, so as you can see, whenever they would enter in, they would enter through a system of tunnels underneath. They would actually walk in underneath the entire thing and be lifted and hoisted up to the top, right? Because that made for dramatic showing. Other cool fact, really quick, just to give you a heads up, only about 1 out of every 5 fights resulted in death, mainly because, like I said, these people were specially trained, and a lot of the gladiators cost a lot of money to train them. It just had to be a decisive victory. Now, I know Omar right now is like, yeah, I told Mr. Terry that. And here's the thing, though, Omar. When I say that people ended up dying eventually anyway, it's because the lifespan of a gladiator was dramatically short. They only usually lived to most of them didn't even live to see the age of 25, I think, something like that. A lot of them did die from wounds incurred in the ring later on in life, right? So slowly as time goes on, you start to see more violent acts. A lot of public executions would be done as well. This is really cool. But so a big thing about the fights and how they would happen, they had all kinds of fights. They had battle reenactments. They had naval battle reenactments. See these tunnels right here as well? The Emperor Nero would actually have water pumps installed, and they would fill the Colosseum ring with water and have mock naval battles, like guys on boats just throwing stuff at each other and trying to sink each other's ships. It's a very, very cool sports arena. And then continuing forward, though, they would usually have the acts in 3 separate segments. They would usually have an opening act, which is sometimes a beast hunt, where they would actually bring in fake trees and rocks and set up an environment and then release an animal out into the ring, and then a person would come in, a gladiator or a warrior would come in, or a slave, and would actually practice on hunting them, right? They would have public executions in these as well as opening acts for the gladiators. They would actually tie prisoners and stuff to posts and then release things like lions out for them to actually kill or execute the person in front of the entire crowd. It was a really, really big deal. And then also, they would have magicians, was a big one, right? They would be so they would have magicians in the Colosseum, but the big debut thing was always the gladiators, right? And this right here, these are the marble steps that the senators would actually sit on. Now, the poor people sat on similar-ish steps, but not marble ones, usually concrete steps. And while they were up there, they did a lot of, this is what the ring should look like. See the sand right here? That's what it would look like had the bottom of it not rotted out. A lot of really cool things, though, what they would do while they were in... Oh, and that's my wife. Look how adorable she is. Let me show you this real quick. All right, so while people were in the stands, a lot of times they would do several things, right? For example, young kids would actually take their writing styluses, these little things right here, right there, and they would carve the names of their favorite gladiators and then vandalizing the steps would be oh, Craig was here, right? And they would draw scenes that they had seen in the gladiator, etching it into the steps and stuff, which is really cool. And then also right here, this is actually the gladiators' locker room across the street. And then there's a tunnel that comes underneath where they actually could walk in. So cool. I love the Colosseum. It's so neat. All right, anyway, now, but it was built under the age of, I think it stands as the shining example of the Pax Romana, right? The Colosseum, the great sports arena, right? Now, anyway, for years, though, after Augustus, Rome would go through several good, several bad emperors. Oh, also, if you find out a cool fact about the Colosseum, come in and tell me. I love that stuff. Oh, and I didn't tell you a thing. Hold on. Going back to these things right here. See these little guys right here? They're stoves. Romans would actually cook in the stands, right? They would actually cook little meat on a spit, and they would actually rotate over top of these little tiny stoves, right? So actually you can see where they would start the fire right here, and air would be sucked in right here in that hole, and then would actually go into the little flame, and they would actually cook while they're in there. So it's like the Roman version of tailgating, right? They would actually hang out and cook food in the stands, right? So very, very neat. I've always thought that was so cool. But Rome's going to go through a lot of good and a lot of bad emperors, or imperators, right? All of them are actually in family dynasties. A couple of examples are the Julio-Claudians, which is actually the dynasty of Julius Caesar, the Flavians, which is another dynasty as well, and I'm pretty confident the big Flavian emperor is Titus. Yeah, the Flavian emperor is Titus. He's the one that had like 122 days of games after they took over Jerusalem, right? Titus actually took over Jerusalem, the area of where Christ was actually born. So anyway, so going forward though, the worst though, here's the thing. The Pax Romana is a little deceiving, simply due to the fact that there were some bad emperors in there. It wasn't just straight up Roman peace, right? And we'll talk in class about a lot of the bad ones I'm going to show you pictures of here in a second. But the two worst I want you to just have in your notes are Caligula, which is actually the guy who came right after Augustus, and some of the stuff he committed is going to blow your mind. And then the other one is Nero, right? Who is a big chief persecutor, and he was actually a Julio-Claudian as well. Both of these are Julio-Claudian emperors, right? But Nero, big-time persecutor of the Christians, right? Like, huge persecutor of the Christians. And so, why does everybody need me, like, all the time? Then, that's Caligula, that's Nero, that's Commodus, that's Elagabalus, that's Caracalla, but we'll talk about all those guys tomorrow. But the main thing you need to know is that there were actually 5 good emperors, right? There was Nerva, Trajan, which are very important people. Hold on! Nerva and Trajan, which are very important individuals. Hadrian, which is another very important figure, who actually is going to organize the Roman bureaucracy, the system that they set up where they turned conquered areas into provinces and then appointed governors in a more like bureaucratic sense with tax collectors in each area to try and bring Rome to a better economic height. Then you got Pius. Also, Hadrian actually expanded Rome into England and built a wall to stop Roman expansion, which was very, very clever because he was like, a bit too big, we're just going to collapse, right? Which they did in the long run anyway. But he organized the bureaucracy and also had Hadrian's Wall built, right? So we're over here, put like Hadrian's Wall. And then Pius is another great example, but the best out of all of them, is Marcus Aurelius. Right here, Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, right? He's going to bring Rome to its greatest heights and its largest expansionary provinces, right? He also is going to be considered the philosopher king because he actually believed intelligence was the best way to rule, right? So, but those are the 5 great emperors, right? So, but yeah, that's where we're going to stop because here's the thing. I need you to write this down in big letters, though, because the fall is coming, right? So the fall is on its way. So make sure you get all that stuff, right? The Colosseum is the dopest dope, and I will talk to you guys later. I'll see you in class tomorrow, all right? Have a good evening.